Let's get started. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on training models with SageMaker. Today, I'm Nathan Wilkerson. I'm the VP of Engineering. Unfortunately, Stacy couldn't join us. Instead, we have Joaquin Lippincott filling in. We have Ray Pocius going over some ML case studies we've done, and Dhaval Shah, a solutions architect, a senior solutions architect from AWS. Today, we're going to give you a very quick overview of Metaltoad, but then we're going to dive straight into a case study, how about training models of SageMaker, and a little bit on POC funding at the end, and we'll wrap up with some questions. So Metaltoad is an Amazon solutions provider and an advanced tier partner that specializes in ML. We've developed data pipelines and ML solutions for companies like Daimler, Siemens Gamesa, and Securitoad, just to name a few. And we've been doing this sort of work for over 15 years. If you enjoy this, please feel free to join our future webinar on AWS model deployment on August 28th. And now I will hand it over to Ray, who is going to be going over training models with SageMaker.
Great, thank you, Nathan. Just bring up my screen here. So today's webinar will be about training models with Amazon SageMaker. Oftentimes, companies encounter some of the following problems. A company may have data that they want to extract insights from, but may need a custom machine learning solution for their specific data. Or they may have an algorithm that they're using, but don't have sufficient infrastructure on-premise to train it efficiently. They may also need to train that algorithm on an ecosystem that can be used to deploy that algorithm to scale to production level activity. I'm going to dive into a specific client case study where we use SageMaker training to address their problems, and then we'll have an overview of SageMaker. Genius Vets is a client of ours who came to us with a large amount of call audio data. Genius Vets helps its customers to find the best veterinarians. They also take call data and evaluate it for training purposes. Manually evaluating calls is a very time-intensive process, and if automated, could save Genius Vets a lot of time and money, and can help them to provide better training for call receptionists to improve the overall customer experience. So we were tasked with building a system to automate flagging calls as positive or negative for training. When first determining a solution, we asked ourselves the following questions. Do we need a custom model for this problem? We determined that we do. AWS AI managed services like Comprehend were not suited for our specific domain problem. We also wanted easier fine-tuning of the system and to have control of the generated output. The Genius Vets problem also has a lot of domain-specific knowledge compared to just general sentiment analysis. Some calls talk about medical terms that may be considered negative by Comprehend, but are more neutral in the conversation. We have training data that can be used to train a custom model for this specific domain challenge as well. And with that, I'll hand us over to Dhaval to provide us an overview of training models on SageMaker.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ray. Can everyone see my screen? Perfect. Thank you so much. So thank you so much, Ray. So now we have heard about the problem. Before jumping into the solution, let's understand what SageMaker is and what SageMaker offers so that we can help you understand how to build a solution using SageMaker. So we'll start with the basics of like what is SageMaker. So again, Amazon SageMaker is the most complete end-to-end machine learning service offered by Amazon. It has it can be used by all different personas. It offers the entire end-to-end pipeline, right from like building or preparing data set till the machine learning deployment. So it has the workbench that basically contains SageMaker Studio, which is the entire place where the developers and infrastructure can build the pipeline and write code. Amazon SageMaker is a managed infrastructure So it takes care of high throughput, latency, and all the distributed training that you would need to take care. And apart from that, it also offers tooling that helps you understand the model and what you're deploying. So all that we discussed about SageMaker is into 4 categories called as prepare, build, train, tune, deploy, and manage. So we're going to cover all of this a little bit in the future slides. We'll start with the first, which is Amazon SageMaker Studio. Amazon SageMaker Studio is the most important Amazon SageMaker service. It is a unified service that contains the entire ML interface of deployment. So basically, right from collecting the data, preparing it, storing it, and then writing notebooks till deployment is offered within this Amazon SageMaker Studio. So basically, this is the first point where you would start working towards your machine learning pipeline through SageMaker Studio. Amazon SageMaker Studio offers a SageMaker Studio notebook. A notebook is the place where engineers and developers write piece of code. SageMaker Studio notebook integrates with data sets like EMR, S3. It also has different capabilities to transform and build the ETL pipeline. So for example, if your data resides in Snowflake or S3, you can leverage SageMaker Studio notebook to integrate and build that pipeline. And apart from that, you can again build, train, deploy and monitor your SageMaker Studio, deploy your machine learning models through this SageMaker Studio notebook. Here is a small snippet of how the studio would look like. On the left-hand side, you would see the code. The code is basically the code that you write in any framework of your choice. And then when you run it, you can see the visualizations, and you can use it to track, monitor, and much more. We'll cover in the future slides. So this is the starting point where once you start working towards building the machine learning pipeline, the first step is to write that piece of code. And the second thing is that once you start writing the piece of code, you would need to use some built-in algorithms, or basically write your own algorithms. So Amazon SageMaker currently offers 11 inbuilt algorithms which you can directly import. So this helps you helps you save time before to not write a piece of code. And if you feel that you would need to write a piece of code, you can also bring your own algorithms. So basically, the step is to first get Studio ready, and then with Studio notebooks, you would write the piece of code and either use the inbuilt algorithms or bring your own. Once you are done with that, the next step is to train the ML models. So machine learning, again, the machine learning steps basically are to first prepare the data set. The second step is to write the algorithms. The third step is to train the machine learning models. Training can sometimes be challenging because you have to work with building the models. You have to hyper tune the parameters. There are a lot of things that require pre-build to make sure you're aligning with the SageMaker notebooks. And to achieve that, SageMaker offers SageMaker experiments. So experiments are a way to store your events, parameters, and all of them as parameters, as experiments. So basically, when you start training the models, these experiments automatically auto-tune the ML models for you. Apart from that, SageMaker offers debugging and distributed training, which allows you to capture the real-time matrix of your models, as well as allowing you to run your models in multiple different instances. Apart from that, also SageMaker recently offered Spot trainings, so you can also leverage Amazon SageMaker Spot for training out machine learning models. So basically, again, just to recap, we opened the notebooks, we wrote the piece of code, we then train the model. The next step would be to deploy the model. So here is a small snippet of how the training estimator looks like. This is the exact piece of code that you would have in your SageMaker Studio notebook to train the machine learning model. Once training is completed, we'll start deploying the model. So Amazon SageMaker offers 70 or more instance types depending upon your workload to choose from for your machine learning models. All of them offer single-digit latency, so you can expect real-time answers back from these models. Apart from that, all this integrates with MLOps. So basically, right from checking in your code to deployment could be automated with Amazon SageMaker. And sometimes it is challenging to understand which piece of code or which instances you would need for your machine learning models. That's where Amazon SageMaker offers automated deployment recommendations to help you identify the correct instance for your models. So you can see your entire ML pipeline, right from checking in the code through deployment, can be taken care with, again, Amazon SageMaker. For inferencing, Amazon SageMaker offers 3 types currently, which are real-time inferencing for use cases like fraud detection, batch transforms when you want to like check for the user, or when you want to process large database systems, but you don't want to have it real time. And the third one is asynchronous inferences, where you feel that you have a large payload when you need real time. That's the place where we can use asynchronous inferencing. So that there are 3 flavors of inferencing currently offered through Amazon SageMaker. Once deployment is completed, the next step is to monitor the model. Monitoring the model is pretty much straightforward. You deploy the model and you have some ground truth data, which is some sample data. And you would basically like just have a baseline as from this ground truth data. Whenever the model runs, you would have some jobs verifying if the ground truth results are expected. And if they are not, they are stored in some S3 bucket. And if whenever the threshold hits, this detects and basically calls CloudWatch alerts to retrain the model. So basically by this mechanism, you can monitor the model and effectively know if your model is working fine. The next step is after monitoring, we have introduced SageMaker JumpStart. Amazon SageMaker JumpStart is the newest offering in the world of SageMaker. This directly allows you to access the foundation models directly from the SageMaker Studio. So currently there are 3 options to access SageMaker JumpStart. One is through SageMaker Studio, SageMaker Notebooks, and AWS consoles. You can directly like access JumpStart from any of these places. And currently, JumpStart offers more than 40 foundation models, both publicly available as well as proprietary models. All of these models are available in SageMaker JumpStart, which takes care of the entire machine learning pipeline for you. You just go to JumpStart, you pick the model you want to choose, and the model is available, and you deploy the model. So basically, this was an overview of what SageMaker offers and what SageMaker JumpStart is. And now I'll pass it to Ray to discuss how this SageMaker was used to solve this problem.
Awesome. Thank you, Dhaval. Now I'll go over our solution to GeniusVet's problem with SageMaker. So we took the audio files that GeniusVets had and stored them in an S3 bucket, and then used AWS Transcribed, which is an AI managed service, to generate transcriptions for the call. These transcriptions were then saved in S3 bucket to be labeled for training. We used SageMaker Ground Truth to set up a data labeling job and had domain experts from GeniusVets label calls as positive or negative based on their criteria. The results of the labeling job were then saved in an S3 bucket as our training data set. We trained several different custom models with different data sets and hyperparameter tunings using SageMaker training jobs and experiments. Data sets were built using SageMaker Ground Truth and were stored in an S3 bucket to be used as data sets for the training jobs. Once training jobs were complete, they were evaluated for their performance. We compared the results using metrics such as F1 score, number of true positive, false positives, false positives, false negatives, and confusion matrices. We then selected the best performing model for our client. And with that, I'll hand us over to Joaquin to talk about our proof of concept funding opportunity.
Right. As a consulting partner with AWS at a certain level, we're able to access funding on the AWS side to launch POCs or proof of concepts with AWS backing. The general framework, we look at creating a pricing calculator. We figure out what the annual spend is. And AWS wants to encourage people to play around with not just ML, but all sorts of different products. And so with that in mind, they will provide 10% of that annual estimated funding in the form of proof of concept funding. That can be great to offset the cost of an ML workload that you want to prototype and figure out how it works. And if you're interested in doing anything like that, Stacy, who is our head of sales, would be happy to answer any of those questions. It's a great opportunity. ML really is changing all kinds of industries, and figuring out how this is going to work within your industry can potentially come to you at no cost. Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Joaquin. And with that, we'll move over to Q&A.
We have an attendee who has their hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and allow them to talk directly so they can ask that question. Hey, Marcio. Arcio, can you hear us?
Hello, yes.
All right. You had your hand raised. What's your question?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that I misclicked the screen. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
I think.
If anybody else would like to ask a question in person, so we have the Q&A where we have a couple open questions. I'm curious to know if everybody can actually see them, but we see that Nathan has answered one of them, which I'll go ahead and read out loud. And then if anybody would like to ask questions of anybody on the panel, you can simply use the hand raise functionality. We'll see that, and then we can open it up so that you can speak with us. So the question that we have answered here already is, how are you charged for using SageMaker? Nathan, I'm going to go ahead and read your answer, since it looks like you might be busy answering other questions unless you want to answer it yourself.
I'll dive in again. So SageMaker is a collection of, I don't know, 100 different services or something at this point, and they're all built slightly differently, but the majority of them just run on underlying EC2 instance classes, and so you're based on the size and the duration. There are some exceptions to this, so double check the pricing on the SageMaker page for whichever service you want to use, but that's generally what you're going for right there. Is just the size of the instance and the duration it's going to run.
And then we've got an answer from Dhaval, who put into the chat. Let me go ahead and make sure that everyone can see that. Dhaval, I'll just take that and move that along. That is what you use. That's the SageMaker pricing calculator. And so if you're curious about what your pricing might be for your workload, that's where it would be. So I'll go ahead and ask the next question. So next up, we have, how does SageMaker simplify the process of deploying and manage machine learning models, especially for developers who are new to the field of machine learning? I'm going to go ahead and mark that as answered live. And I'm going to turn to either Ray or Dhaval. Which one of you wants to take that one?
Yeah, I can go first, and then if you want to take it next, or you can go first, Ray, if you're already talking.
Okay, yeah, I can answer this one. AWS SageMaker does a lot of the heavy lifting of managing ML infrastructure. You can easily just point and click on AWS console to drag in your own data sets, to train models, to select your best model, and to deploy it at the click of a button. To do this on your own services on-premise is very complicated. You have to have a lot of engineers preparing the infrastructure, buying the infrastructure, the GPUs, and maintaining it. AWS keeps it very simplified in that all that training is on their managed services, and you can easily integrate that with AWS Lambda or API Gateway to make immediate use of your trained models on a production level environment.
Great. And we've got 5 questions in here. Dhaval, if you want to add something that Ray missed, or if that makes sense to you.
Yes, absolutely. I just want to quickly add, the main heavy lifting where SageMaker plays an important role is at the endpoint, right? Where AWS takes care of the scaling and throughput and latency, right? Basically, when you have the model deployed, you call the endpoint. If you suddenly start seeing a large burst of request, Amazon SageMaker will take care of scaling the endpoint for you. You would not need to add more instances or add more CPU to make it work. So basically, with a couple of clicks, you deploy the model, and then rest assured, Amazon SageMaker takes care of deploying it at scale for you.
Great. And then we have the next question from Leonardo. Are there any limits to the size of data set that I can use for training? That's a great question. Dhaval, do you know that off the top of your head?
Oh, I mean, yes. Again, I would say there is no certain limit. Currently we have large foundation models that are running on petabytes of data, right? For example, GPT-4, Llama 2. So again, I mean, there is no correct size. And again, SageMaker does not have any restriction either. The only caveat is that if you are trying to pull it from different data sources, you would just need to make sure that you're able to pull them and again have it in a single store to process large database. You might not be able to pull from 5 different databases to train the model.
Great question. And then this one is from Ingrid. How can I benefit businesses that don't have extensive machine learning expertise? That's a good question. What do you think, Nathan?
It's a little open-ended there, but because it depends on your specific business use case. But in general, you can use machine learning to take anything that is repeatable, that just takes a little bit of judgment there, to automate stuff. Recommendations, you can use it to generate text at this point for emails, marketing material. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can use it to improve almost every type of business out there.
Yeah, I would say businesses that aren't thinking about machine learning will probably have a machine learning product that's going to pop up soon targeting their business. And I don't know if anybody else on the panel has anything else that they want to say about this question in particular.
I mean, I can just add to this is like, Amazon SageMaker offers low code, no code services. So basically, like, for example, if you don't have machine learning capabilities in your environment or skill set, you just take the data set and just run the low code, no code service called SageMaker Canvas. It will tell you like good insights about your workload, and probably like, that would be the starting point to see like, how you can leverage this data. So I think there are some low code, no code services that you can leverage to like, see and then probably play around with that to build out again machine learning pipeline, or just leverage low code no code to visualize and see how you can leverage it in your use cases.
Great answer. Then we have another one from an anonymous attendee. How does SageMaker JumpStart help protect my data? Who wants to take that one?
Oh, I can take
Oh,
it too.
yeah, please.
Yeah. So again, SageMaker JumpStart is the newest offering to access the foundation models, right? Basically, these foundation models are already trained models available from like open source or third-party startups, right? And again, fine tuning. If you basically use that model as it is, there is no data of your data exposed to the foundation model. You're basically leveraging the foundation model. But if you plan to customize it and fine tune it, your data would reside in your S3 bucket, which is going to be your S3 bucket encrypted and holded by you. And again, which basically goes in the foundation model, but again, it is encrypted and managed by you. So AWS or the foundation model does not get any of your data exposed directly.
Yeah, and I would take that a step further. It's not just on within that product, but also the whole ingest product. So Nathan, I know you've done a ton of work with SOC and SOC 2 in terms of data protection. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say a lot of this isn't dependent on the model or even the SageMaker service. A lot of it is dependent on you for the security. Part of the shared responsibility model from Amazon, where you're in charge of keeping all your data stores secure and encrypted. Some of them are now default encrypted at rest, and you can provide your own keys if you really want to be sure they're encrypted securely. But a lot of it's how you configure the security, because you turn on the instance, you import the data, you export your models. Amazon doesn't really see any of that. They just see the instances turn on and off.
And I would say, as a consulting partner, we can be that you. So if you're new to Amazon or you want to use SageMaker, whether it's no code, low code, part of that value that we bring is making sure that not only is the machine learning, but also the security is being dealt with appropriately, so that you can say you are doing your part in terms of the shared responsibility. So we have another anonymous question here. How does AWS SageMaker provide a secure model for ensuring data privacy protection? Looks like it's pretty much the same question. I think that's a great question. Anything you would add about this particular nuanced question, either Nathan or Dhaval?
No, I think Nathan covered everything.
I was going to say, just on the area of privacy, is making sure that as you're designing out these data stores for your machine learning, making sure you're being compliant with all the necessary regulations across the United States and Europe, and that you can remove data that's not there, is something you should definitely take into consideration when designing these data stores out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also making sure that you go into really any system where you're uploading your data into the cloud, where you do go through an architectural round and you think about if data and security is important to you, and certainly if you have personally identifiable information, which is often part of a data set that you see in machine learning, making sure that is being treated appropriately. So then we have one last question, and then I think we're pretty close to time. How can I see all my trained models to choose the best model to move to production? And Ray, is that something you would feel comfortable answering?
I can answer that. Amazon SageMaker Studio has a built-in interface for viewing your SageMaker experiments. So as long as you're training your models and also kicking off experiments alongside them, you can collect custom metrics. And then on the interface, you can select different models to compare against each other and analyze. And then you can see the differences across your metrics on any given set of models that you've trained.
All right, great. Well, let's give our panel a round of applause. There's American Sign Language for applause. I know everybody on the attendee side is applauding silently. So thank you so much for coming, and enjoy SageMaker. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. That's what we're here for.